What it do? Yo man, listen. Today, I have a follow-up to my last video. This video, I want to talk about the something I call the neurotrope effect. This is something I noticed when I was making my last video, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. But first, I've been making a lot of neurotrope videos. It's my favorite character. I think it's one of the more enjoyable characters to play with. So it's only fitting that I do a neurotrope giveaway. So I'll be giving away a full Neurotrope, enough shards to unlock the character so you can start using your Giga Brain powers to dominate guild raid bosses. All you have to do is subscribe and leave a comment, and in a few days I will announce who wins, and then, I'll contact them, give them the code and whatnot. So let's get right into the video. So what is the Neurotrope effect? Essentially, the Neurotrope effect is where certain characters get caps put on their abilities because they will be too powerful with Neurotrope if they did not have these caps. Neurotrope, despite being a relatively balanced character, is actually on the verge of being overpowered. So Snowprint has to put in certain limitations to prevent the character from being very strong. So the first character that gets limited by it is Neurotrope itself. Neuroparasite is how Neurotrope deals its damage. Each time an enemy unit gets dealt psychic damage or they will be suppressed, they get a stack of Neuroparasite after Neurotrope has attacked it. And at 15 stacks, the stacks are capped. That is the most amount of damage you can do. You get around 2200 damage per stack. Now, as I said, this is capped. The reason being, if this was not capped, you could easily reach 20 to 25 stacks every game, and you will be doing a lot of damage, especially if you brought a Yaskor, because remember, Yaskor essentially doubles your stacks for one turn, so any increase in Neuroparasite's stack cap would be a significantly impactful boost to its damage output. Now, multi-hit characters and how they interact with Neurotrope. Now, Neuropassive has a cap, but as I alluded to just a few moments ago, a Yaskor, through his Sorcerer's Facade active ability, gives Neurotrope one additional hit without any limitations or caps. Now, Neurotrope getting the secondary hit is pretty cool. It does a little bit of damage, but we don't care about the damage. What matters is the secondary hit benefits from the 15 Neuroparasite stacks. So when Neurotrope has one hit, he does his damage stat, and then he does 15 stacks of Neuroparasite damage. When he has two hits, each hit does 15 stacks worth of Neuroparasite damage. So effectively, on one turn, you're getting to proc 30 stacks worth of Neuroparasite damage, which is really good. Now, the characters who are limited by this. One of the characters that is most obviously limited because of Neurotrope is Ahriman. Now, Ahriman's passive ability is called Psychic Salt. Whenever an enemy unit anywhere on the battlefield is on a hex with fire, takes flame damage or psychic damage, this damage is increased by 50% to a maximum of 5,400. Second bullet point reads, each time Ahriman makes a range attack, enemy hex catches fire, so, he activates his own passive, he meets the conditions. Now, I genuinely ask you, what other character is there in the game that can reach 10,000 damage of flame damage or psychic damage in one hit other than Neurotrope? Because they get a 50% damage buff and the cap is 5,000. So for you to be able to reach this cap, you need to do 10,000 damage so the 50% of it can reach the cap. Because I can't think of any other character aside from Neurotrope that does 10,000 damage with flame damage or psychic damage. Now, I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm saying I understand why they put a cap on this. Because if there wasn't a cap, think of it this way. Neurotrope at 15 stacks does 32,000 damage per hit. If there was no cap, Neurotrope will be getting 16,000 additional damage from Ahriman's passive. And this is massive because essentially 7.5 stacks, and you can get to 15 stacks on turn 4 or before turn 4, depending on placements and comp composition, of course. However, this is a lot of damage. 5,000 damage, it prevents it, of course, It's clearly for Neurotrope. There isn't another character in the game that can reach that number right now, where they do 10,000 damage with flame or psychic damage in one turn. Similarly, Vitus has the same cap on his passive. Vitus is a very special case in the Neurotrope team because he's one of the characters that doesn't give psychic damage or doesn't have suppression on their attacks, so you exclusively bring him for his passive and his high damage stat. His passive is Master Annihilator. After Vitus deals damage to an enemy, the next 3 attacks of any friendly unit against that enemy score an additional hit. This additional hit deals a maximum of 7,400 damage. Now, unlike Aran, I can actually think of a few characters that can actually reach this cap. The first one that comes to mind, aside from Neurotrope, of course, is Roswitha, because her passive is 3,000 damage against psychic enemies, and her damage stat is high enough that with any amount of buffing, for example, Calgar increasing her damage stat, she can probably meet that cap. However, once again, I think this is done mainly to put Neurotrope in line. Because I want you to consider Yazkor when I'm talking about why Vitus has a damage cap. I made multiple videos talking about how Yazkor is considered a core part of the Neurotrope team, and the reason he is a core part of the Neurotrope team is because he gives Neurotrope 1 additional hit once per game. And for him doing that, he's considered core. Now, if we had Vitus doing the same thing where he can give Neurotrope +1 hit every single turn without a damage cap, now that would be infinitely better than Yazkor, so you could take some other character to buff your damage even more. And on top of this, if Ahriman's passive was uncapped, you would be doing 90,000 damage per attack with Neurotrope when you're at 15 stacks, which, don't get me wrong, I'm the biggest Neurotrope glazer. That sounds really fun. But that's not the point of this video. It's just to show you what I'm talking, something I noticed when looking at these characters. It will be very strong. You will reach 300,000 damage easily. It will be trivial to reach 300,000 damage with max characters. Now, for implications that this has for future, because Neurotrope functions on a different axis than other teams, Aegistor Row comps and Ragnar Blackmane comps, they are different in how they play. However, their end goal is very simple. It's just to spam as many hits as possible with as much damage as possible and proccing Eldryon passive as many times as possible. Neurotrope, on the other hand, the first goal is to reach 15 stacks as fast as possible, and then applying those stacks through extra hits, high ground, and rolls with damage percent increase, and you do your damage that way. So for future characters that get released, to be able to enter the Neurotrope team, they have to do very specific things. Them having good stats is not enough. They actually have to do certain things to be able to replace the current characters. For example, Abrax is one of the best Neurotrope stackers. The turn he summons something, he does 3 stacks, and then if your pink horror is high enough, he splits, those 2 summons give extra stacks, and then he gives extra stacks, so he's very good at stacking. So if another character that got released and that could also stack the character, the Neurotrope Parasite stacks, they would have to do 3 stacks a turn consistently. People have been asking about, Mephiston, and how he works on the Neurotrope team. In my experience, him giving 2 stacks is pretty cool. However, it's not enough. It doesn't change the team enough for him to merit replacing another character. Another way a character can be replaced in the Neurotrope team is if they provide a percent damage increase. Currently, Roswitha is taken because most of the guild raid bosses you take Neurotrope against, which are Avatar of Cain and Mortarion, they are demons, so for 2 turns, characters can do plus 20% damage to those bosses. Now, if there was another character that gave a plus % damage increase that wasn't capped, similar to Roswitha, now that might actually be able to replace her, and if that was a psychic character, it will be even better. Ability to give additional hits, as I've established with Yascore and Vitruvius, it is invaluable to Neurotrope. So if there was a character that gave extra hits without caps, or that gave extra hits with a higher damage cap than Vitruvius, then they would probably be taken in the team. Perhaps they would replace Yascore. In some cases, perhaps they would replace another character. And an ability to interact with bosses instead of Neurotrope. This is very similar to how the difference between Eldrion and Calgar, whereas Calgar gives your character a boost, and Eldrion reduces. Goodness, there's a bug. Sorry. I've been told. Big Neurotrope has been sending these little bug spies to prevent me from making content. Everyone knows, everyone says so. Anyways, I'm not gonna edit it out. I think it's hard. What I was saying is, an ability to interact with bosses instead of Neurotrope is very important. So, Eldrion, he interacts with bosses, they take more damage, whereas Calgar boosts the character. So, if there was a psychic character that made it so enemies took more damage, that might be usable in a Neurotrope team. You might be inclined to ask, hey Draupnir, Eldrion already exists, and I understand this sentiment, I get this very often. Eldrion is not a bad character for the Neurotrope team. However, because his damage is only 900 per hit, he kind of falls apart when most of your comp does singular hits. He is more tailored towards having comps with multiple hits. Anyways, I'm yapping at this point. I don't want to drag the video out too much. Bloody Rose Discord server, link in the description. I have my own channel, Draupnir Gang. Hop on, we'll chat. If you want a video subject, talk about it, I'll most likely make a video. Thank you very much for watching my video. Special thanks to Dieselfox, Papa John, Lita Lama, Sarp, Heartswept, Askayon, Yeris, Bruce McSloop, Prosan, and Infinite Power for entering my referral code. It's in the middle of the screen if you want to enter it. It greatly supports the channel. But if you don't want to do it, no worries at all. I still appreciate you giving me the time of day. So once again, thank you very much for watching my video. Have a good day and stay safe.